There's a really important, I thought, and interesting op-ed in the New York Times that we kind of wanted to highlight for you. You can go ahead and throw that up on the screen. The headline is, "Disdain for the less educated is the last acceptable prejudice. It's having a corrosive effect on American life and hurting the Democratic Party." This is written by Michael Sandel. He's a political philosopher and also a Harvard professor. And basically, it's about classism. Yeah. He actually makes the case that, look, Joe Biden, by lacking these Ivy League credentials, which is something we've talked about here, it actually gives him a certain advantage because so many people feel this level of contempt coming from elites in this country, and in particular, oftentimes from Democratic Party elites in this country, who, oh, by the way, Obama and Hillary actually looked down at Joe Biden for not having these credentials himself. And so he really digs into how pervasive classism is in society and how little attention is paid to it and how just sort of like acceptable it is to look down your nose at people who don't have a college education or are in the American working class.
It's deeply embedded within the idea of the meritocracy. And that's actually the book that Michael Sandel is writing. It's called, this is an excerpt from it. It's called The Tyranny of Merit, What's Become of the Common Good, which is when you have all of these people through various like aristocratic means, which is what they are, inherited wealth is an aristocratic thing, which enables you to go to a better college and have all this opportunity, and same with the different school systems and taxes and community. All that funnels into making people who are elites believe that they earned it.
So that they are inherently better.
Right. They're like, well, I went to Harvard, and I went to public school too. It's like, yeah, well, you go to public school, New York City, not necessarily the same thing as somewhere in like Davenport, Iowa or something, right? And maybe they're a better school funded, maybe they have special programs, maybe they even get fundraising from private organizations to support their so-called public school. So then you have that person who goes to the school and they really think that they owe nothing to the people who didn't go to college. 2/3 of people did not have a 4-year college degree here in the United States. Would you know any of that if you watch media, if you watch any popular representation, if you watch our politics and the way that we even talk about our debates and the language that people use? So much of it is basically divorced from any class reality here in the U.S. And really on our own show, we covered about the idea of that eviction moratorium, which was a massive news item for millions. Mm-hmm. Those millions happen to not be New York Times subscribers or Washington Post subscribers because they can't afford the New York Times or the Washington Post.
They have other priorities.
That's the most important thing.
That's exactly right. And he digs into, as we have as well, I did a radar here on Cori Bush's victory and how unusual it is to have someone who is actually a working class person who struggled with eviction and losing her housing and having to figure that out. How unusual that is. And he has the stats here. He says about half of the labor force is employed in working class jobs, defined as manual labor, service industry, and clerical jobs, but fewer than 2% of members of Congress ever worked in such jobs before their election. And in fact, if you look across, not just in Congress, you look across the entire country at every elected office, the number of workers who actually hold leadership positions are vanishingly small. And so especially at a time when our economy has been broken in two, where you have, even in the coronavirus pandemic, you see the people that were doing fine before, they've made it all the way back. They're just doing fine. The 0.1% is doing better than ever. Means that the mass of the American public is completely invisibilized here and in leadership positions, not just here, but around the country. And that is that aspect of our society, the way that you're treated as less than human, the sort of surveillance techniques that you're subjected to in your workplace, all of that is rarely discussed in American media. And when it is done, it's like, we're going to go on safari to talk to some workers.
That's right.
As if they don't make up
parachute in.
Right. With this very caricaturish usually view, as if they don't represent the majority of the American public.
Think about the amount of freedom you have as a white collar worker versus one who is a actual blue collar worker. If you work at an Amazon factory, we were talking about this earlier, about how they measure your steps, right? If you're not moving fast enough, they have something where they can actually reprimand you. Amazon workers have to pee in bottles at warehouses. If you're a white collar worker, how much work are you really doing? Maybe 4 hours out of a 9-hour day. The rest of it is spent hanging out, getting lunch. I would live the life. I know what it is. I know what you people do. And I think that it's important to understand that those people think that they're well, I earned it. They're I worked harder than these people. It's just not true. It's absolutely not true.
And that is the biggest lie in American society that left and right have bought into in various ways, that all we need to do is sort of perfect the meritocracy so that everyone can achieve according to their God-given ability.
Yeah.
Like, I hate that phrasing.
Right.
Which basically, all that is a way of explaining why some people are able, it's justification for why some people are able to have so much and lives of such luxury, and why so many people are forced to struggle and to barely be able to make it day to day. Because if you have this mythology, which ties into the American dream mythology, that says, look, everybody, it's the land of opportunity, everybody's got a shot, then while you're praising the ones who bootstrap their way up to the top, which rarely is the case, by the way, usually there's a lot of help and a lot of luck along the way, the flip side of that is that those people at the bottom, they're really less worthy. They don't really deserve to have a decent life.
We've never had less class mobility in this country in the way that our economy is structured. It's the first generation of people who, when you have a child, you can be definitively certain that as things are heading right now, they will not be better off than you. That's a very depressing state, and it's actually anti-American, if you really think about it.
All right, we'll have more Rising for you after this.